Pascalina, I can see, I think I did mail you if you attended yesterday throughout the session, but if you have not received it, just pop me an email. That's perfect. Barry, I just quickly want to, before we get to the EAP targets, if you can go to the EE plan inputs.
Okay, no problem.
The nursery, and this is something that we can discuss. I want to give you an example on the barriers. When we are talking about your policies, and you need to review your policies on how you recruit or where you advertise or how you select someone for a specific position. I want to give you an example on what we build in onto our online portal when we assist companies pertaining to disabilities. The nation, and then me and you must please have a consultation that we can implement this into on our online portal as well. So Barry, if you scroll down a little bit to the disabled, I want to give you an example when we are talking about reviewing your policies. So as you can see there, we noticed. So in other words, under let's assume recruitment, you go through your policies and you verify and you see and or you realize we noticed that we have a challenge recruiting disabled staff. The target is 2% of your total workforce. Possible reasons include, but are not limited to, our working environment requires able-bodied employees to occupy the positions due to the nature of the business. Our business premises lack facilities. So, colleagues, remember this is now the problem, the barrier that they foresee. For disabled employees, limits the recruitment of disabled candidates due to high the cost of implementing facilities, positions that require travel, as Arias mentioned, for business purposes are difficult to fill, disabled, the mobility. When interviewing candidates, they are afraid of facing discrimination. That was mentioned earlier in the session as well. We struggle to find disabled candidates with the correct skills, education, and. Okay, so depending on your company scenario, if that is a barrier, and I just wanted to mention this as part of this session because we are explaining disabled, then you say, okay, what is the affirmative action measure? And here's certain things that companies can do. We will liaise with the Department of Employment and Labor, and we provide with the website address. We will liaise with the disabled of South African people. We will liaise with the disabled youth. We will liaise with the disabled women. We will liaise, etc. Okay, and the nursery, that is where I would love to also incorporate QASA and your contact information and even an email address. Because when we consult with companies throughout South Africa, we immediately identify barriers without even looking at their policies. If we attend to a company and some of our companies, clients employ more than 12,000 people, and you sit with a company employing 1,000 people and you look at the EA2 report and they maybe employ 5 disabled, immediately we indicate, you know what, company and client, this is a barrier. If you employ 1,000 people, 2% equals 20. In other words, you're 15 people short. Where do you get those 15 people? You can make any one of these decisions, and we're going to build in QASA and or QuadPara Association of South Africa, and we can input your contact details. Because then when we advise our clients, they can immediately have the information available to say, you know what, that is a barrier. This is the reason, and these are not the only reasons. I mean, if Barry, if you scroll down a little bit, you will see in the online portal we utilize, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of possible barriers, not only pertaining to the disabled, but for each and every barrier, we have a solution and or an affirmative action measure. Okay, so that I just wanted to elaborate on the qualitative analysis. Then, Barry, if we look at the quantitative analysis, these are the targets that changed very recently. And I'm going to hand over to Barry just to indicate to you on what you need to do. In other words, if we are talking about EAP targets, how do you need to go about before you recruit, promote, or terminate? Barry, I'm going to hand over to you if you can do that up until the priorities, then I will elaborate from there.
100%, no problem at all. Good morning, everybody. Okay, so we utilize what we call the EAP worksheets. I'm just going to explain how this actually works. So I'm going to use semi-skilled occupational level as an example. So you'll see on this level there's 1,208 employees here. And the total target percentages for each race and gender is as follows. So African males are 43.7%, colored males 4.8%, Indian males 1.8%, white males are 5.1%. African females are 35.6%, colored females are 4.1%, Indian females 1%, and white females are 3.9%. So that's the target percentages that the department would like to actually see you achieve. And then we look at the actual representation. So you'll see here we have actual representation here for African females. So their current actual representation is 32.2%. So they are underachieved here by 3.4%. Which is why they're priority number 5. When it comes to white male, you see the target here is 5.1%. Their actual representation is 0, which means they are underachieved by 5.1%, which is why they are the highest priority here. So how is this calculated? Well, you'll work out naught. You'll divide naught into 1,208 employees. And then you'll get obviously 0% there as such.
The lovely thing working from home.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries.
The joys. Okay. You also see as well, you'll see the target here for African males is 43.7%. Actual representation here is 67.8%, which means they are overachieved here by 24.1%, which is why they are priority number 8, because they have 819 of the 1,208 employees on this occupational level. Anything else you'd like me to cover, Peter?
No, not for now. I think that's okay for now. We will
Perfect.
go to the what if just now. In other words, ladies and gents, do you see what we mean in terms of determining your under and overrepresented race and genders in each occupational level? So the question that the Department of Employment and Labor asks is the following. If your last priority in this demo company, African males in semi-skilled, is priority number 8, how do we know that? That is the highest minus. In other words, the highest underachieved race and gender in that particular occupational level. And you go and you employ a colored male as an example, which is priority number 2. The department will say that's better than employing an African male. But did you consider white male? Because the white male is priority number 1, being the lowest under and or the highest underachieved. Sorry. Okay, so you get my drift. But if you can click for me on the what if calculator, I just want to show the delegates here. So in other words, each and every time before you recruit or promote, you will need to do this exercise. Please, ladies and gents, we've seen it more than 70 DG reviews last year. The DL inspectors are hammering companies on EAP targets, 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 priorities, priorities, priorities. So now, let's say, Barry, if you can summer on a colored male, let's say employ one colored male in junior management. As an example, you will see what will now happen is your priority number 1 would be an African female because the target is 35.6. The actual is 3. 3 divided by 18 equals 15.79. You make your calculation and then you realize it's the highest underachieved area. Hence the reason why it's priority number 1. So Barry, let's employ another couple of African females. And then you will see if you employ another one, you will see now priority number 1 becomes a white male. Barry, let's employ 2 white males. Then you will see how the priorities change. Ladies and gents, we're going to open for questions just now, I do believe. But do you get my drift in terms of? Okay, so what we have started advising companies throughout South Africa is when you look at your priorities, and let's assume it is a white male for this example. Remember, designated employers are all your African males and females, colored males and females, Indian males and females. White females are included as being a designated employee. as per the current legislation. And here's the good news for white males. White males foreign nationals are excluded. However, a disabled white male, irrelevant of the disability, is also deemed a designated employee. So back to the discussion earlier today, you have this stigma of a disabled person declaring him or herself being disabled. I'm going to lose my job. What's going to happen now, etc., etc. When you have your management meetings, our advice usually is a meeting like you are doing here today, all of us, explaining to your committee members, colleagues, you know what, there's a lot of people working in this company. We know that they are disabled, but they do not want to indicate that or declare that on the EA1 document. Go and talk to that employee. Say, you know what, you're not going to be discriminated against. Don't have that stigma. You're not going to lose your job. You're not going to be paid less. As a matter of fact, for employment equity purposes, for this matter, it would be a plus point when you do your reporting to the Department of Employment and Labor, and the Department of Employment and Labor will really appreciate that. Okay, so when we consult with companies throughout South Africa and we say, you know what, you might need to employ here or there, and we're talking about your plan, it's maybe a 2-year or 3-year plan going forward, then we advise, say, but if you need a junior manager, maybe 5 of them, what is the possibility that we can maybe perhaps consider at least one being disabled? Okay, and that is what we do out of a disability point or perspective towards our clients and new companies coming on board and companies throughout South Africa in general. Barry, you can maybe unshare this. Um, just quickly want to share something to the team. What do you see in front of you? But you can maybe just type this website address, please. It's for the colleagues, it's www.employmentequitynews.co.za. And ladies and gents, on a daily basis, employment equity news are being updated here. Okay, you can see each and every day whatsoever, if there are news for the day, it's uploaded. So, and it details only employment equity and not all other information, only employment equity related matters. You can subscribe, join the community. If you join the community, it's free of charge. You don't have to pay anything, and then you'll become part of the forum. And if you have employment equity related questions, you will see ECMS. We are there. So when companies request certain information and or ask questions, you create your own post, and it's a forum that we interact with one another. Okay, so it comes at no cost. And then just to finalize from our side at ECMS, before we will take any questions, um, the online portal that Barry has shown you just now was maybe 5% of what our online portal can do and how we assist companies throughout South Africa. And just due to the fact that your delegates attending this webinar here today, and to hopefully engage with some of you going forward, we are able to any company telling us they are non-compliant, they don't have a committee, they don't have policies, they don't give training to their committee, they don't have a plan, they don't have an EAP analysis whatsoever. We can get everything in place for any given company in more or less 3 hours. Okay, so if you go and you talk to your employment equity manager, the person will most probably tell you it takes weeks, months, 2 to 3 months. We have heard about a company that said no, usually it takes them up to 6 months. The whole reasoning is we have the online portal with more than 3 million formulas and algorithms drafting the documents without you even having to type it over. We become your consultants and we take the matter from there. The good news I have for QASA and QuadPara that invite us here today is that if you send me an email we will place you on a 30-day complimentary trial. Within that 30 days, you will have your e-manager appointment letters, employment equity plan, analysis, be able to prioritize, have all of that documents available. And should you like to engage 30 days after, we take it from there. If not, Bob's your uncle, and you have your documents, but then you just don't have future access to that portal to see where your company might lack. The reason why we do it, we have a 95% hit rate of companies saying, you know what, please, we would love to stay on board. So if you have any information or need, sorry, any information on that, you just send me an email, cp at eecms.co.za. And do me a favor, just maybe copy the nursery in that as well, so that I can see where it comes from. Okay, so Barry, anything from your side? Are you satisfied?
Yeah, I'm happy, Peter. Thanks very much.
Perfect. I see a question here. Hi, Peter, regarding the 2% disabled employees target. While the term compliance is being used, are there any actual consequences to not adhering to this target, or is it more a guideline for now that will be implemented at a later stage? Sion, thank you very much. An extremely valid question. You're sitting in a scenario where, with the current legislation, companies can be penalized for not complying with certain sections of the Act. In other words, do I achieve it? Yes, no penalty. Do I not achieve it? No. Give an explanation, no penalty. But, ladies and gents, there is a proposed amendment bill that was gazetted the 20th of July, 2020, where we do believe the Act will change by March next year, March 2022. Okay, we do believe that. It's not confirmed. However, if you look at the employment equity, the DEL process, and the parliamentary processes, we do believe that that act will be gazetted during March. And that act, as per the proposed amendment bill, it seems as if you do not achieve the targets set by government, you will be non-compliant. Okay, so I hope that that answers your question. In other words, for now, no, it's not penalizable, but we do believe that it will be penalizable going forward. Just want to see from the beginning, sorry, because I think from Raven. Well, thanks for your presentation. Very insightful. Scary time to see that the disability is not prioritized as other diversities. Yes. Look, the bottom line is the target is 2%, but as mentioned, currently not being penalized for not achieving that and all those targets, the 2% targets. Just as a matter of interest sake, the private sector achieved 0.0% of the target last year, and the public sector achieved 1%. Okay, so it's actually, Raven, to get back to your point, it is actually quite a concern. If the target is 2%, and neither government nor private entities basically get to 50% or more, that is quite disappointing. But do you believe me, the inspectors are working on that in terms of DG reviews. Then from, just want to see, Annelien, Peter, thank you, very informative. I would like to know, are the EE targets applicable for all companies, private as well as state-funded institutions? Yes, yes, it is. If we are talking about colleges, one of our clients, and I can mention the name, is University of the Free State. It's the same targets applicable for a private school versus a public school, public entity, private entity, same targets. We do believe the targets will also change to sectoral targets during March when the proposed amendment bill is being gazetted. Okay. I hope that that answers your questions, but if not, you can later unmute yourself. Hi, Peter, regarding the two compliance is being used, is being used? Are there any actual? Okay, so that one I answered. Then from the nursery, question sent directly to me. The calculator you use to calculate priorities, is it your own tool or a tool designed by the Department of Employment and Labor? No, it is our own tool. Um, we worked on it for just about 7 years, pertaining to intellectual property and finances, building our studios, etc. So, but to answer your question directly, it's a tool that we utilize, and when we engage with a company, we provide that tool to the company. In other words, we do a handover. Our client receive a password. They change it immediately due to Poppy and Pile, the legislations that you will by now definitely know of. And then it's available to our client at any given point in time. It's cloud-based driven, so it's not a software. If something changed, like the nursery, she's going to liaise with me later today. She's going to provide us with the contact details, and we're going to update it. When we do that, more than 200 of our clients will immediately receive information to say that we engaged with QASA and so forth. Okay, so that's I see you from Bina. Sorry, does this apply to welfare organizations as well? It applies to all companies throughout South Africa, public and private. It applies to non-profit organizations, to schools, universities. It does not apply to the army. It does not apply to the South African National Secret Service, and it does not apply to the South African Police Services, as far as I know. Okay. Reason being, of course, that you don't want to elaborate and know the number of people that's working for the South African National Secret Services. You don't want that to become public domain at any given point in time. Other than that, even, I'm going to be frank and honest, even the Department of Employment and Labor needs to comply with this act. Okay, municipalities, government institutions, and so I can go on, state-owned entities, etc. Okay, Bina, hopefully that answers your question. Your direct answer is yes, it does apply. Also, just only should you employ more than 50 people, and or if your turnover is above the annual threshold in your industry. Okay, again, you can go onto our website. Where do you get that? If you go onto www.eecms.co.za, at the top, you just say who needs to comply, and there will be a clear indication whether your company needs to comply or not. Then thank you for a very informative session. Then